Hello, I'm Jeff Steinman, and welcome to the second in the three-part video series of how to quit your job and start a business so that you can live an amazing, passionate life of freedom, loving every second of your life and doing something that really matters in the world like all of my guests on the How to Quit Working show do. So glad that you joined me for the second video in the series, and I'd like to ask you to stick around until the end, because if you do, I'm going to give you one of the many worksheets that we have in the How to Quit Working Now program that we use to literally just write out answers to questions that you need to answer to build your business. It's that simple, but I'm going to give you one of the key worksheets for free today if you stick around until the end of the video. So make sure that you stick with us through this entire video. Now, I first wanted to go back and review a little bit of what we talked about in the first video. And in video 1 of this series, we talked about how belief affects the results that you get in your business and really in your life in general. You know, the biggest reason that so many people don't do more in life, that they don't do more than they do, in other words, that they are so held back from what they really want and are really capable of, is because they don't believe. They don't believe that it's possible. We live in a world that has told us that the way that you support yourself, the way that you pay your bills, put a roof over your head, put food in the mouths of the people that you support is to get a job and to work a 9-to-5 job. And the common message and what we're taught in school and by the media and all of the influences that we receive in our life is that getting a job is the only way to do it, and that going to work from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening for your entire life, doing something that you probably don't care about, is just the way it is. So we've come to, unfortunately, have this huge cloud of acceptance of mediocrity over us. And that's one of the things that I'm out to change in this world. We talk about doing work that matters. Well, what matters to me is changing the idea that you have to be stuck and that you have to settle for less than you really deserve in life. It's one of the many reasons I'm here trying to show you how to quit your job and start a business so that you can live an amazing life. But as I said, what we talked about in the last video was how you have to believe. And we talked about how Daniel Vance, everything changed for him when he suddenly believed that something different was possible. He believed that it was possible to have the dream business and the dream life that he wanted now. Not in 20 years, not in 30 years, not after some giant investment from some investor, but no, you can have it now. And 30 days from when he started going through this How to Quit Working process, the very stuff that you're learning right now, he was making $7,250 in his first month. And that was just his first month. It's amazing to see what is possible when you believe that the dream that you want is possible. You can just do amazing things, and Daniel is a great example of that. We're going to talk a little bit more about his story later on in this video. But before we get into that, I want to talk about a couple of questions that I got around the first video. Now, one of the questions that I got was someone said, you know, I've been told that I'm funny and that people really enjoy listening to me talk and that I make them laugh. And the question was sort of, should I pursue a career as a stand-up comedian? And the answer to that is, the nature of this question is one that I get a lot, and it's really about, you know, if there's something that I really want to do, how do I decide if I should pursue that or something that might get faster results? Now, I think that everybody should be able to do everything that they want to do, and anybody who wants a career as a stand-up comedian, as an actor, as a musician, as a business consultant, as anything, can have that. You can have anything in the entire world that you want. But the question that you have to ask is, right now, what is my goal? This program, this platform is called How to Quit Working. And what we focus on is quitting your job quickly, getting quickly out of that 9-to-5 job that is not giving you the satisfaction, the fulfillment that you want, and into something that gives you the flexible, free lifestyle to pursue the things that you want to pursue. And getting into the entertainment industry is not something that happens quickly. It is not the quickest way to get out of your 9-to-5. So the answer of should I pursue a career in stand-up, the answer is absolutely you should pursue that if that's what you want to pursue. And there's a lot of great stuff in How to Quit Working, in many of the interviews that I've done and in the programs about how to build that long-term sustainable audience and build up a following in anything that you do. But it is not the fastest way to quit your job. It is not the fastest way to the door. And again, that's my goal here, is to show you the fastest way to get from here to the door. And if you have something that is a bigger build, something that will take longer to build, the perfect thing to do is to use these techniques to figure out what value that you provide to the world, quickly find those people who want that value and identify that product or service that you can sell to them quickly. And when you do that, you can then quickly replace the income that you're making in your full-time job, and then that frees you up in so many different ways. It frees you up time-wise, financially, and schedule-wise to then have the flexibility to go out and pursue those other things that are of interest to you. So it's a personal decision. You have to decide, is getting out of your job quickly your goal? Because if it is, something like that is not going to be the thing that's going to do it for you quickly. But if that is your long-term goal and that's what you want to push forward, absolutely push forward with that, but just know that it's going to take a little bit longer. Now, one of the other questions that I get a lot, and I got it a couple of times around this last video, was I have a business idea of fill in the blank. Is it any good? People always ask me, Jeff, do you think this idea is any good? And the important thing to remember, I love when I get that question because it's such a great opportunity to really step back and reframe the way that we think about this stuff. Because my answer to that question is I have no earthly idea. Nobody knows if a business idea is good or not. I did an interview with John Shear, the video professor, I think it was late last year. And he shared some really amazing insights about the infomercial industry. You know, when they put together infomercials, when you see an infomercial for like the Snuggie or, you know, a diet supplement or whatever it is, that is one of many, many ideas that was tried and tested, and that's the one that succeeded. So the failure rate in the infomercial industry, which is a very expensive industry, it's very expensive to put those ads together and to air them on television, even in a pilot type of a situation. But the ones that you see are the ones that were successful out of many, many ideas that they tried. So that industry has something like an 80% failure rate. And that is, and the other thing about that industry is the best and brightest marketers and business people are out there in that industry making those commercials and identifying and validating those ideas. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that the best and the brightest, the top people, the top business and marketing people don't know what is a good idea and what is not a good idea either. Right, so when you start thinking about things in terms of ideas, is this idea good, is that idea bad, or how can I find a good business idea, that is not thinking that's going to get you out of a job anytime soon. The problem with it is that you don't know, I don't know, nobody knows if a business idea is good except for those people who are going to pull out their wallets and either pay for it or choose not to pay for it. So what we do in the How to Quit Working system is the first thing we do is we start off by recognizing, hey, we're just not going to know. We're just not going to know if something is a good idea or not. So what we do is we use the system to get that idea in front of people, to get that idea out there, and to ask people if they are interested in that idea. And then they either say yes, and that's great, or they say no, and we say, okay, well, how can we tweak that and change it and make it into something that you are interested in? And that is how you quit a job fast. So is your idea good? I have no idea. And what will make you successful is realizing that you don't know either. Right, and changing your mentality to be about finding a group of people who potentially could be interested in that idea, and then letting them tell you the ideas, letting them validate the ideas that you have. So switch your thinking away from the idea mentality. Now, the other thing that the other question that I got was, well, what if I don't have an idea? Well, I answered the other one first because I just refer back to that answer, which is if you don't have an idea, that is great. That is the greatest place to be. I actually spoke with a prospect recently who said, "Yeah, but Jeff, I don't have any ideas." And I'm like, "That's great. That's the best place to be." Ideas can really tie you down. Ideas, I see this so often as folks get an idea and they get really attached to it and they start to move forward on it and they get attached to the idea, and then what happens is you can't see where the idea is not working, right? And sometimes it's hard to recognize when that idea is not working because you're attached to it and married to it. So don't get attached to an idea ever, but if you don't have an idea, even better. Go out and find people in the general domain or the general area that people gravitate towards you for your expertise, whether that's photography or gardening or parenting or spirituality, whatever that may be. Go out and start talking to the people who gravitate to you and get the ideas from them. And that's exactly what we do in the How to Quit Working system. It's all about getting that group of people together and gathering that group of people around to tell you what you should create and tell you what ideas you should put in place. So those are a couple of the questions that I've gotten, and I wanted to address those before I jumped into today's topic, which today we're going to talk about the two things that you're doing to yourself to keep you in a 9-to-5 job. And these two things are probably the most damaging things that we do to ourselves as human beings. And again, it goes back to all of the influences that we've received throughout our life and that we received from the media, we received it from our parents, but all these ideas about ourselves and our value and about what money really is and what money really means. So let's break down those two things. The first thing that you're probably doing to yourself to keep yourself in a 9-to-5 job is that you're undervaluing what you have to offer. When folks start off early in businesses or when they're dabbling on the side, they always have a tendency, and I shouldn't say always because nothing's absolute, but it's so prevalent, but they have a tendency to really, really undervalue themselves, and they have this tendency to sell their products and services for way less than what they're worth. I mean, they're worth this much and people sell them for this much. And I certainly fell into that trap. We've seen this time and time again. Guests on the show have talked about how ridiculously cheap they sold their products for early on because they didn't recognize the value or the transformation that they were creating in someone's life. And the one thing that I think leads folks to undervaluing themselves and undervaluing what they provide is that because we live in a job-conscious society, we live in a work society, a society where people go to jobs. So when you're starting a business, if you're here, you're one of the people that are trying to pull away from the pack. So you're in the minority, and it's a great place to be. I'm so glad that you're here. But that also makes it really difficult. It makes it hard to pull away if you don't change the way that you think. Right? So in the way that the masses think, or the herd that's moving forward in this way that we're breaking away from, is they think in terms of hourly. They think in terms of how much am I worth hourly? And they go out in the marketplace and look at and say, oh, okay, well, I do this and that person makes about that much per hour. And then that's how they value themselves. And the problem with that is that's based on a model. That's based on a whole structure and a whole model called the 9-to-5 employment model that doesn't value what human beings bring to the table, doesn't value what the difference or the transformation that you're able to make. They look at you as compared to anyone else who's capable of doing that narrow sliver of work that you've been hired to do. So I hope that makes sense. Because the point is that you've been conditioned to believe that your value is based on the hours that you put into something, rather than the value or the transformation that you actually provide. And that's a huge shift. That's a huge shift for folks to make. But it comes from the idea that when you're valued as a member, as an employee of a large company, you're valued based upon just being compared to other people who are capable of doing that job, right? Not the actual transformation that you're capable of doing. We talk a lot about CEOs and how highly they're paid. Well, the reason that they're paid so much money is because there's so few people that can do that job. Now, whatever you think about corporate CEOs is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, very, very small number of people have the right skills and abilities and talents to be able to do that job. So that's why they get paid more money. They also have more stress than, to me, is worth any amount of money. But the point there is, well, on the other end of that spectrum, that's why fast food workers receive such a small amount of money, because there's so many people that are capable of doing that. Chains like McDonald's have figured out how to make jobs so specific and so easy and so easily trainable that virtually anyone can do it, which drives down the cost of that labor, because there's so many people that are competing for that small number of jobs. Or I should say, there's so many people that can do that number of jobs. So you've got to get away from this idea, and I hope I explained it well in terms of where that idea comes from. But you've got to get away from that idea of how much you're worth per hour, and get to the idea of your worth, the transformation that you can provide in someone's life. The transformation that I provide is that I help people to leave their soul-sucking 9-to-5 jobs and have an amazing, passionate life of freedom, doing something that matters. That's not an hourly thing. That's a transformation in someone's life, right? So that's what that dollar figure needs to be based upon. What kind of transformation can you really create in someone's life? If, for example, you are the person, I use the parenting example a lot. If you're the person who knows some really good techniques and is really good at raising good kids, and you're able to use some techniques that help parents to have better behaved children, think about the transformation that creates in someone's life. Think about how if your kids just went to bed when they were told without any fuss, right? And if you have the way to make that happen, think about how that makes someone's life better. That means that they sleep better. That means that the kids sleep better. That means that the parents feel better the next day when they go to work. That means that the kids do better in school because they're more well-rested. It means that they're healthier. The kids are healthier because they're more well-rested. It means the parents are healthier and happier. Everybody's healthier and happier because they're more well-rested. Think about that, and think about how much that's worth, not how much the couple of hours you might spend with them is worth. So think about it from a transformational standpoint. And what happens is, and this is why this is so beautiful, when you start thinking about it from that transformational standpoint, then the number of transactions or the number of clients or the number of products that you have to sell each month gets much smaller, right? Because you have to figure out how much money you need in a month to replace your existing income. And then you got to figure out, well, if you're making X per sale, then how many sales do you have to make? And when you start thinking about it in terms of the transformation, well, that number goes from being like this to being like this, and then suddenly you don't have to sell as many units. And that's one of the keys to the How to Quit Working system. It's one of the keys to being able to quit your job fast. You're not going to quit your job fast selling some $2.99 ebook on Amazon. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. It's a great thing to do, but you got to sell a heck of a lot of ebooks. I calculated it the other day. I think you have to sell like 60 or 70,000 ebooks in a year to replace like a $60,000 salary. I mean, it's an insane amount of volume that you have to do, and that's a whole lot of work. So think in terms of transformations that you can provide and how you can provide and what the value of that transformation that you can provide is. Not that value of the hours that you put into it. That's irrelevant. You'll put a ton of hours into it, and that's okay. But make sure that your pricing is based on the value that you provide. Now, that's the first thing, and that's undervaluing what you're worth. That's the first thing that you might be thinking that's keeping you in a 9-to-5. Now, the second thing that is keeping you in a 9 to 5 is being weird about money. There's a lot of stuff out there about money mindset and thinking in a positive way about money, which is absolutely critical if you want to have success in business, and certainly critical if you want to quit your job and start a business. The problem is that we have the media and our society, and overall we've developed this idea that is completely inaccurate. It doesn't make any sense. But we've developed this idea that money is bad, that money is evil, that when you are asking someone for money, when you're taking money from someone, that you're doing something to them. You almost feel like, and then this is one that's, it's hard to get over this, but the first thing you got to do is you got to realize it for what it is. But you feel like when you're taking money from someone, like you're doing something to them. It feels like you're punching them in the gut. That's how we've been trained to think about money. We think of money as being a scarce thing that there's not very much of. And when you take it from someone, that's like punching them in the gut. Now, I want to give you a different way to look at that, a whole different way to flip that around. And the way we have to do that, the way that you have to think about it to get out of that mentality is to really go back. I mean, go back to early humans and think about how we originally did commerce way, way back. So how we originally exchanged value with each other. So business and commerce is nothing more than an exchange of value. Back in the caveman days, there were certain cavemen that were really good fire makers, right? There was, Bob the caveman was really good at making fire. So if you needed a fire made, you would go over to Bob and he would make you a fire. And then maybe there was another caveman named, let's call him Sam, who was really good at hunting, right? So Sam would hunt. I forgot the first guy's name, Bob. Bob would make the fire, and then when Sam came home with the kill, you would have a fire and you would have some meat and everybody could eat. And that was kind of the first idea of trading commodities or trading goods and services. But then what happened is, as humans evolved and as we began to do this more, and as we began to realize that we can have more, we can have a better life, we can do more, we can get more out of life, we can have more enjoyable lives if we stop doing everything ourselves, right? So if we start to get other people to do things for us, you probably in the last 3 or 4 days have eaten at least one meal that you didn't prepare. Right? So you probably have gone and gotten some food out at a restaurant or picked something up prepared at the store. You have exchanged value, which is now money, for that thing that you got in return. So you wanted that prepared meal, so you gave some money for it. Now, think about if you had to do the thing that you do for your job for that person in order to make the meal for you, right? So, then, if you're a computer programmer, then you would have to find somebody who needed some computer code written and also knew how to cook. And I mean, that would just be really difficult to find that person and make that match and make the deal. And how do you value it? Well, because that's so complicated, we just said, okay, let's standardize it. Let's figure out a way that we can make this work in a more streamlined way. And we found that with currency. Originally, it was like beans and beads and things like that in the very early human days. But now it's this thing called cash. That's this green stuff that we carry around. So all that money is just a representation of value. So when you give somebody, remember we talked about how you might be tempted to think about your value as being down here, but now it's actually more like this. So when you give somebody this much value, you need to get this much money back, not this much money. You don't want to give this much value and then get this much money back. That's how it works. Unfortunately, most of the time when folks are starting businesses, they give this much value and then they get this much money back, and that's just not fair. And it keeps you working forever and ever and ever and ever because you got to keep doing so many of those little things to finally stack it up to the point where you need it to be in order to be able to quit your job. So those are the two things that you're probably doing that are keeping you in a 9 to 5. So stop doing them. Stop undervaluing what you offer, and do that by looking at the transformation that you're providing in someone's life. And then number 2, stop being so weird about money by just realizing that it's just a representation of value. If you get a lot of money from somebody, that means you gave them a lot of value, and they've gotten a lot out of it, and they are probably going to go and do something even bigger and better with that value that you gave them. So just completely chill out about it. Just relax. It's totally cool. So since you stuck around, I'm going to give you that worksheet, and if you just look below, it should have popped up magically by now. You should see that worksheet and a link to download it. Download that worksheet and fill it out. Print it out, or you can fill it out online. Whatever you want to do, whatever works for you. Just keep it simple, keep it easy, but fill that worksheet out, because it really gets you to thinking about what is the value that you can provide to the world, and kind of who might want that value. It's a really great mental stimulus type of a thing to get you going. And again, that worksheet is just one of numerous worksheets that you get in the How to Quit Working Now program that I'm going to be launching in a few days. Now, in that program, we go through trainings like this, and then we fill out worksheets. We just kind of fill in these things, and it's really, really simple. You just kind of build a business almost by listening and understanding the concepts, and then filling in a worksheet. So just to let you know that you'll be getting more information about that program in just a couple of days. In the next video, actually, I'll be giving you all the details about that program, but I did want to let you know that will be coming up. Now, in the next video, it's not just going to be a sales video for the program. There's also going to be some really good information in there, because we talked about determining what the value is that you can provide to the world. But the next thing, and in order to provide that value, you have to be able to sell it. You have to be able to go up to somebody and say, hey, do you want to buy this thing? And then you have to be okay with what they say. And people think that's so scary. It's a huge thing that stops people from starting businesses, because they think, oh my God, it's so scary to think about selling something, and I'm so nervous, and it's so scary. It's not scary. You just have to change the way that you think about it, and then it'll be simple, simple, simple. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. How the heck do you sell this stuff that you've got to somebody else? Meanwhile, fill out that worksheet, and then also leave a comment below and let me know, what are you good at? What do people come to you looking for your help with, or your advice on, or whatever it may be? I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to download the worksheet and leave a